Welcome to What's Your Sign? I'm Julia Loken.
I'm Stevie Goldstein.
And I'm the little harmony of this podcast.
Cute.
Should we all harmonize?
That
wasn't it.
I don't know if we got it. I'm really bad at it, but also over Zoom's not helping either.
Oh yeah.
Well, we gotta set a
key,
a starting place.
Right.
Yeah, someone hit the harmony.
I don't know.
Give it to us. Your mom.
Just put in a Christina Aguilera songwriter.
Yes.
Flip it in there.
And in vogue.
Yeah.
Never gonna get it. Never gonna get it.
I like to sing. And this very, very Taurian. Well, we were just saying off mic before we were geared up about, I think, something I want to state now for the pre-Mercury retrograde, or are we a Mercury? I don't know when this episode comes out. We're all spinned out, but I think beware in this Taurus Mercury time of cancellation fees. That's all I'm gonna have to say. That's gonna be like my that's if I could we could end the episode now. That's all I'm gonna put out there for this Mercury retrograde time. Like hidden fees, hidden things that you like think. You guys, I didn't realize I was paying for Fubo television. I thought I had this trial. I'm paying $69 a month.
Oh my god,
Fubo.
No.
That's horrible. I'm sorry.
It was. I mean, I think I caught it at like 3 months, but still too long.
69's a lot.
A truly like incarceration, like send me to the loony bin. Like I can't believe I just can't. But it was one of those this is why they're brilliant. It's one of those cancellations that you rarely see where, because usually when you do a trial, you can cancel it right away and you can still maintain the trial. This was no, once you cancel, the trial is done. So I was like, well, I will.
Oh, I know. I hate those.
I will text myself. I will put on the calendar, cancel Fubo, and then flash forward to me looking like a big
Have you been watching
dumbass.
It at least?
No, I haven't even been watching the Fubo, and I could have.
What's on what?
It was RuPaul's Drag Race, and then it was and that was really the only thing I was there for. So just keep an eye out for that. I know there's apps that do that, but I'm thinking too of like those dinner reservations. I'm just like thinking of the flexibility, and we kind of talked about it with our Taurus season look ahead in general about this Taurus time being a little more open to like going with the flow, or going with what you feel. I think that can be something that maybe Taurus isn't always known for, but has been more lately with Uranus in the mix. So I'm talking about like keeping it loose and not as like punishing with the fees, or knowing that you might have to suck up and eat a fee if it's something you want to get out of or want to change.
Yeah, I think that put it in your calendar to do it. That's the only way to do it, is if you're like, it's this day, when you do it. Like what you're saying, where, there's somewhere you cancel it and it lets you have the whole trial. It's like, cancel it right after you sign up. Like, do not be like, I'm going to wait 5 days.
Yeah.
You have to wait. Put it in your calendar as a reminder.
Well, it's always one of those things that you're like, I'll remember to do this, or this is going to feel important to me or urgent, and it just doesn't. So it is like you do either have to set the calendar alert or do it immediately, or you end up paying.
Yeah, or just walk away. I should have just walked away from that. Like, oh, you need to like cancel it later. Because who am I to think I would have remembered to do that? Like, I should. It was a little case of know thyself. But also, I mean, I think I don't know if I texted you guys about it, but I went an 8-hour boat ride over the weekend.
I talked to you about it a little bit. Yeah.
I think I'm a little sick from it. So pardon my very sexy voice right now. But 20 minutes in, true panic attack, had to get off the boat. Could not get off the boat. They would only take you back if you're like, are you going to the hospital? And I'm like, I didn't know like how far to push. Yeah. It wasn't a lie that I was freaking out, but it wasn't a take me to the hospital sort of situation. It was just like, I think I've made a mistake. I think 8 hours is too long at sea. And now I'm here paying for that greatly. And I spoiler, stayed on the boat because there was no other option. Powered through, took naps. Weirdly, that was part of it, but also saw a lot of humpbacks jumping and a lot of good sea life. But it felt very, because I wasn't in the Mercury retrograde yet, but in the shadow, and also like kind of in this pre-eclipse time, I think of just like things feeling like a lot, like things feeling like, wow, like this sounds really adventurous and fun. And it really was. But I think also like to know that, yeah, you're on a boat at sea and those things are also hard too. So I don't know. There's like a realistic slap in the Taurus Mercury face that felt like, yeah, like you thought I like packed a picnic. I thought it was going to be I don't know what I thought I was going to be doing. I thought it was going to be like yachting or something. And
I do that same thing where you're like, it must be Cancer placement stuff, but like I'm like
this is home.
I have everything I need, and then I'm like, no, I don't. I don't. Why did I bring my thing? I don't want to wear my water. And
I can barely eat one of these pinwheel sandwiches because I'm afraid, wet. Everyone's puking. It was just, bro, because we were on a research boat, which was also my research. I wanted to go with a team of biologists. Like I wanted to be with like the real sea road dogs. So it wasn't, I don't want to go on the prissy big yacht boat that I saw with all the tourists. I want to go with the researchers. And yeah, they're roughing it out there. You know, it was very deadliest catch. I was like, okay.
Yeah, they need more money. Unlike
exactly.
Tourists have all the money. Yeah,
they were doing it scrappy, super scrappy style, and everyone was so nice. And also for any like whale girls, Nancy Black was the captain of the boat. She's frequently seen on Blue Planet, and she's like super all-star in the orca / whale universe. Didn't see orcas. I will be back, but it was just funny because after Pablo was like, "You want to go back and do this again?" I'm like, I would, but because now I know. And I will do a 5-hour tour, not an 8. 8 is just too long to do anything.
Did you have Dramamine?
No, I don't get seasick. So fun fact.
Does not. You don't need it for that. That's for you to go take your naps and do your. I mean, it helps obviously with the vomiting and stuff, but
yeah,
definitely I would recommend getting it not at the place, but like at a store, and then having it in case you're like, I am freaking out and I need to go calm down and take a little sleep and come back.
Yeah,
I groggy as hell, so you could barely panic.
Yeah, I needed to drug myself more. I took like half an edible. I should have taken 3 total because I don't get seasick. I just get boat freaked. I totally got boat freaked. I was like, if something happens, I'm at sea, and I'm wearing a huge like fur coat. Like I will drown. Like I was just thinking about like kicking off the shoe. Like I went into total anxiety mode, but also here, hello, I'm sorry, Saturn's been squaring my fucking Mercury. Like anxiety, my like anxiety has been back like never before, and I will blame astrology and not my regular mental health. And not to say like that it's all only astrology, but like I've been feeling that the mutable pressure. These places I wasn't feeling pressure and mutableness these past few years, where I've been feeling it more in my fixed, I'm now starting to feel it more in my mutable zones, as we all projected with this Saturn and Pisces. So check on your mutable placements is all I have to remind. I know we're talking about Taurus Mercury in a bit, but check on your mutable placements because they're getting those early degree ones, because they're getting that Saturn pressure that they're still maybe not used to.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry. Yeah, I lived to tell the tale.
The squeeze is real.
You did good. You made it. That's huge. Not even just live to tell the tale. You did great. You went through the whole thing.
I did the whole thing. Like it was a classic. I don't know if you guys get this with anxiety where I'm like, let me drive the boat. Like I want to be the one, even no experience, don't know anything, but for some reason want to be Aries the person doing it. Yeah. Like that was.
Yeah.
Anyways. And then I also went into, oh my God, I'm going to have to pay for all these, like, they're going to turn it around. I'm going to have to pay for all these Finnish photographers who came from like so far away's trip because they're going to turn back for me if I do say I want to go to the hospital. Anyways, I am normal. Yeah, I am back on land and normal now, but it was really, really fun. And really, I'm glad it was one of those things that after the whole duration at the end, where like me and Pablo were reflecting, we're like, whoa, we just did something really cool, but it was spread out over a lot of time. because that's how long it takes to search for those sorts of things, whale waiting, as you know, as I call it. But it was just like, yeah, the time was like truly trippy. Also that, and like I went on a Pisces moon conjunct Saturn. I was like, this is either gonna be really a really good one, this might really work, or be very trying. And yeah, it was a little trying, but ultimately very magical, and saw like so much whale jumping, breaching. I kept saying they're jumping, they're breaching, but you're breaching, Your Honor.
Sustain.
And now back to talk about this bitch Mercury. Have you guys been feeling any of the funky? When does this I need to know when this comes out. Oh yeah, we'll be in Mercury retrograde time. We're still a little early to peek behind the curtain while we're recording, but been in the shadow for a bit.
Has not stationed, but we are in the shadow. Yeah, I'm feeling it. I feel like not so much because I am not like emailing and stuff as much every day, if that makes sense. So I haven't noticed like the I feel like when I had more of an email job, I could see it very clearly in the oh, I messed up my order, I need to redo this, or I got this wrong, or just even spelling stuff for things coming in, multiple emails and that sort of thing is like the real canary in the coal mine for me of like when we're doing this or like that. But have definitely noticed it with like, forgetting, being like, oh, I gotta update this thing, computer things kind of taking slower, or like not noticing where I've been expecting things to run as they are supposed to, and then going like, oh yeah, remember that's not necessarily how things run. You need to like give it a little bit of time and be aware. I like right before this, I had it was fine, but I tripped over like the charger, and so the computer was off or whatever. But I was like, I'd had it all ready to go, like. But yeah,
the tech trek and check of it all. Classico.
Yeah, I feel like it's coming up. I definitely feel like this one, obviously it's happening on my birthday, so I was like, oh my god, this one's about me. So I had a lot of anxiety for it, but I feel like for me it's mostly manifested in a like having more quiet time. Like even when like I was in a meeting before this, and there were some things that came up that I was like, I have something I could say, but I'm not going to, and I'm just gonna sit here and let you guys figure it out, because it's not my job to talk about that. And just some kind of like, I've taken a few things in my schedule off of my schedule, and those kind of things where it's like the more retreat style, I guess, of Mercury retrograde, which, knock on wood, hopefully will stay that way for the rest of the transit.
I love that.
I think definitely this station, and we can look at the chart and talk about that too if we want to, but it is definitely hitting some stuff in my chart and what I've been thinking about, or what I've been trying to be aware of, because I also have a little bit more of a retreat time right now, is like reprogramming, repatterning, redoing, because it's stationing, it's exactly opposing my natal Mercury. And then I think it also, that like there's another transit that happens opposite my natal Pluto and all these, so I think that like I am a little bit scared. But but trying to think of it as that, like, kind of, I think I talked about this in the Taurus episode too, that also all of this is happening in my 8th house. And so to me, it's really thinking about, letting go of some stuff, re-evaluating some patterns and thinkings and inherited kinds of ideas. And that definitely has been coming up as well. And I'm looking forward to investigating some of that, I think.
Yeah, now I'm looking at my chart because I'm like, wait, well, obviously I'm a Taurus, so I'm like, oh, it will be just cruising back and forth over my sun for that whole jaunt. And I get like the feeling of retreating. It's funny, like I bought all this like stationery and calendars and like got really ready for this year. And I'm just like trying to keep things open because it's like find the more I keep things open, the more things that I want to be invited to or want to have it end up filling it versus like filling it for the sake of filling it or like being like, well, I want to be busy with this, which is usually what I do really like to do. But now, yeah, I'm just like, I just kind of want to see how things naturally, which feels very earth sign, like I want to see how this naturally unfolds. And I like what Lisa said about like, I could comment on this. And I feel like that's very Taurus Mercury. It's like, I could show you how to do things like, we've been having stuff in our, how do I talk about this without talking about it? I'm like, I need to save this for Patreon. I'm like, we've been having stuff with our family and like who's taking care of people's pets, basically. And it's been very like, do I just do this for you? Or do I let you fail at this and then let you handle this on your own? Which, God, that sounded just tutorial coming out of my mouth. But it has been like, I think the urge to want to just fix and do it and Taurus power through and like let me just handle it. Like I'm trying to like let that go and be like they're everyone's adults and can do the things they want to do and like it's not your. I think Lisa even said like not the job. It's not the job. It's not your job to be the person that's like always thinking of everything or having to fix it because then you're just a parent like or then you're just like the person like the manager of like someone else's life and you don't. It's not what you're the manager of your life.
Well, and then, yeah, exactly.
So should we get into the dates?
Let's do
it.
Some
sads.
Yeah, we're talking today, of course, about the Mercury retrograde in Taurus. We are recording this now in the shadow phase, which began on April 7th of 2023. Mercury will officially station retrograde on April 21st, 2023, at least here in Los Angeles on the West Coast. That is happening. Excuse me. I did not write. I wrote down all of the other information except for the time. This is happening at 1:35 a.m. here in Los Angeles. Of course, adjust for your time zone there. We are stationing at 15 degrees and 37 minutes of Taurus. This station will also be stationing stationing retrograde conjunct the moon, which I think is interesting. We can talk a little bit more about that as we go. It will station direct on May 14th at 5 degrees and 50 minutes of Taurus at 8:16 p.m. here in Los Angeles. Adjust that for your time zone. And we will leave the shadow on May 31st, June 1st, depending on where you are. Of course, the shadow, I think it also helps to reiterate what that shadow phase is. It's not just like the lag time. It is when Mercury passes over the degrees that it either stationed retrograde at or direct at. So the shadow phase begins when Mercury goes at 5 degrees of Taurus, because that is the lowest that we get. And then we leave the shadow once it is past 15 degrees of Taurus, again, the degree that it's stationed retrograde at. I feel like I said that more confusing maybe than it was, but just, I think a thing to remind
15 is the max that it goes to before it then starts to move back. 5 is the max where it ends retrograde and then it moves back forward. Then once we make it past 15 degrees, it's like covering the same turf. Literally the same degree turf. Yours made sense.
Yeah, when we enter both sides of the degrees we'll be covering during the retrograde.
Totally. So this
5, say 15. It confusing on the Mercury
of
retrograde.
Course. Of course.
So then those with natal Mercury retrograde will be like, I get it.
I understood.
Yeah, they're like, I heard it. That sounded totally straightways to me. I've been thinking about that a lot, where I go like, did I hear something? Is that what they actually said? I had a dream where there was something that when you were trying to say something, it automatically recorded your voice, or maybe I invented an invention or something like this, but it was something in regards to speaking to someone who couldn't quite understand, and then you would hear you recorded back how you said it. So then you'd go I said X, Y, and Z, but then it would play back to you the way you actually said it, and then you could go oh, I understand why they heard this thing, but it wasn't like a recorder. It was like some, I don't know, speak and spell kind of thing. But I've been thinking about that a lot of like, oh, is that even what they said? Or is that just what I heard?
Well, I'm the queen of that because I have Mercury in the 12th house. So I'm always saying something and then realizing like that's how I cognitively process. It's not how people understand. Like I have a degree in communication, so I have some level of knowledge of like how to make people understand, but for some reason that's not like the way my brain works. I don't know. Also, have you ever like left on your speech to text thing? Like it happens to me when I'm walking the dog and like I'll be speech to texting like Heather or someone, and then my dog will like try to chase a skateboarder and I'll get distracted and you'll see like a super long paragraph of it like no, like all these other like I love you, okay, you're going poop now, like all this. It's like it's very it's very interesting to see how vocal you are when you think you're just like quietly walking the dog.
What you shared, Julia, though, it reminds me of like a very early Black Mirror episode. I just looked at it. Was called The Entire History of You. Did you ever see that episode?
I've seen this.
It's where you can like basically all your memories are recorded. So like when people have fights, they're like, hang on, like
let me play the tape.
Let me play the tape, which is like when you watch it, it's like it's truly hell because it's accurate and real. I can't remember what the premise of, but I think someone opted out, like they don't want the memories, like which makes sense. Like you can opt in or opt out, but I've definitely I feel like the worst, and I think tell me if you've been there, but in like relationships where it's like you don't want to get to that point where you're like, I wish I could record how you're saying this to me because I know what you're saying isn't you. It doesn't. Like your tone is hitting me in a way that is hitting me in this way. And I know you're being kind and your core, but like, it's this tone, like it's your voice, bitch. Like it's like, and I've had that for me. Like I've had where I have a bitchy voice and it's like, I'm not being bitchy. I'm just being me, which is bitchy. But I think that like what you're saying is hearing it back. It's like I just watched the Love Is Blind reunion and they're watching themselves and they're like, well, yeah, of course I do sound like an asshole here, but we don't get to hear those played back because that's not how life would. You'd go crazy if then you had to hear everything played back because you would realize like, wow, I did say that really in a way that I could see how that's taken as hurtful or isn't, or is like curt or like is not loving, or I just realized how much of a loving touch I need most of the time, which is like my own issues like of like, oh, I need to be like it cushioned with like, and you're great and like it's okay, like even if it's a moderation or whatever. So I think this like talk of tone is very Taurian appropriate.
Well, and like the values component of it. Obviously, we're talking about Taurus ruled by Venus. Thinking about like it's not only what you say, it is how you say it and what are you trying to communicate, not only literally like the information. Obviously there's like directions and a recipe or something where there's literal information that needs to be communicated, but so much of our communication is also about letting someone know who they are to us, what's important in our relationship, what is our like thing, and what do you value in communication or in this relationship that you are also trying to get across, and how does that then supersede sometimes maybe the literal words that you're choosing or something like that, or how does that then inform how mindful you are about your communication, because you are trying to also at the same time not only communicate that information, you're also trying to communicate what you value.
I think one of the feelings that is the worst, like for me, and I think a lot of people experience this, I have a lot of nightmares where I'm like, I need help, but I can't speak up. And I think that's like an obvious one to analyze or whatever, where you're like, obviously you're like having trouble asking for help in life or whatever. But I think that feeling of like not being heard, it feels really solitary and really scary. And a lot of times it happens in conversation where there is a back and forth happening and you are saying something and someone's not getting, like, you're not getting through in whatever way. And it happens in fights, it happens at work, it happens in friendships, like all different kinds of ways. And that tends to be a time in conflict when people raise their voices, which makes, only more conflicts come. And I think there is a lot of healing that it takes to feel like you've spoken and that whatever you said, like, hey, like it went out, people heard it or they didn't hear it, that kind of thing. I think something that is really good to do for yourself in Mercury retrograde is like, because it is Taurus is the throat, so that's why it comes to me. It's not the natural place for Mercury, and I think we talked about it on the Taurus season episode of like it's kind of like edging getting to Gemini in a way where it's like it really wants to be there and it has to like stick in the sign that really isn't the spot that it feels the best or the most comfortable or whatever. And so I think like if you do, I love doing all those like different types of meditations on the Insight Timer. I use Insight Timer. There's a bunch of different apps though. The throat chakra, like music that you find on YouTube or like the whatever, those things could be really, if you're feeling like I'm not getting heard, I'm like, there's nothing that that you can do with in between the other person. It's your boss or your partner's just not getting through to them. Like, what can you heal with inside yourself in order to not feel that way? So it's like doing one of those meditations with that in mind, or doing like neck stretches or things that are just really like in that area. Because I know that that's something that comes up regardless of Mercury retrograde too.
That's good. It also made me think of, I'm looking at this retrograde station chart and Venus will be in Gemini. And so Mercury and Taurus are in mutual reception as they are in the sign of, they are in the planet of the sign that each other rules. If you don't know what mutual reception is, Venus rules the sign of Taurus and Gemini is ruled by the planet Mercury. And so when they're in opposite signs, they are, kind of talking to each other. And that makes me think of like, almost like an acts of service as a way of communicating versus actual words. And so if you are feeling like you don't have the words, but I like this component of also how you like communicate to yourself when you aren't maybe necessarily feeling like you're communicating the way that you want, and knowing that that's okay. It's okay to communicate differently and to kind of like calm and soothe and dare I say, reprogram yourself in those moments of that, like of going, this is, no.
It sucks to feel hurt too and to not be able to do anything about it. So it's like you have to at least do whatever you can for yourself in those moments, because you're not always going to get an apology. You're not always going to have someone say, I actually did go back and read over the text and I was wrong. Or, you're not always going to get that thing that you desperately need and you're desperately trying to communicate. So what can you do to heal on your own end, forgive on your own end, leave it on your side of the street.
Yes. Yes.
I like the reminder for action too, because that's been, God, has that not been what I've been very much unpacking in couples therapy of needing, like, I get so much action. That sounds like a brag now. I get so much action, but like so much like acts of service. And it's interesting to think, I think going back into like, since Venus is Taurus, the love language of it all, and maybe mixing it up. And trying something different and seeing, I feel like I just keep hearing this on like podcasts or movies, like about talk is cheap, actions speak louder than words, action. And I think talk is important, but also maybe it's because I've been like talking to a bunch of lawyers lately and they're like, you can truly manipulate any words you need to manipulate, but actions are what they are. And you really can't, maybe there's a spin or whatever, but usually, especially if there's receipts, like you're seeing what you're seeing. But what you guys both hit on, which is wild, is I have the Sabian symbols for both the degree entry points of this Mercury retrograde. And I want to start with the 15 degree one, because that's where we're starting in this Mercury retrograde. So I think, especially where we start in a Mercury retrograde, I think it's where we might be starting out working through. And I think the end degree might be maybe a clue as to, not that it has to be resolution, but maybe where we end up or what we're heading towards. But I mean, like, I love when shit is on the nose. And if I haven't made this clear, Sabian symbols, we'll look at them. We look at them a lot in our Patreon episodes, patreon.com/what's your sign podcast, when we go over the new and full moons. And the Sabian symbols were basically old witch, like made up a imagery for each degree of the zodiac, which I think can just give some fun extra info. But this one is an old man attempting vainly to reveal the mysteries. And another line of this is only when old ways have clearly failed can new knowledge be discovered and presented. Perpetual attempts to deepen and express knowledge. And I like this little paragraph too, is every single moment is new. We stand now in new reality and find that old wisdom is simply inadequate to explain what is the case now. It cannot guide us completely, and so we look for and find a new perspective. We try to explain to others, but with few expectations and no attachment to success. So it's interesting in this, like, maybe a new approach or like taking some time away. If it's feeling like hitting your head against the wall, like not being heard or not being listened to. And then also, yeah, maybe this kind of like really encourages a new way of expressing, which I think is really lovely, nice because we're going to have Uranus up with Mercury for this whole beginning time of this Mercury retrograde too. So we'll have the influence of Uranus in the mix basically to like, I think it's like conjunct with Mercury to like May 3rd or something like that. Like it's up with, I mean, with wider degrees of conjunction too, but it's there with Mercury for some time. So I think what we might want to have a different look or approach when we exit this Mercury retrograde, I feels like it starts really early on during this Mercury retrograde cycle.
Yeah, that's interesting thinking about it as like a conjunction and then passing Uranus as like almost like a threshold it has to get ready to cross before it's like almost there, and then kind of like prepping. I feel like that was a big theme throughout the Taurus kind of episode of this, like before, hey, making sure we're ready to cross this threshold by going back over this, cleaning out, or even just resting before we're like, you know, head first into a new kind of thing. But I like that as like the we're like almost there, and then we're gonna take a sec, but then we're gonna get past that, and thankfully we will have had that time to go like, oh well, now we're even gonna go further than where Uranus is, and that's kind of cool and exciting. Something else that I think is interesting about this one, and I guess this maybe is not notable since Mercury moves so quickly, or like because it's always kind of like this, but we really aren't having many transits involving not the moon. And I think that that's interesting because we station conjunct the moon. And then we also have the transits that we do have are almost kind of moon ruled anyways. We have that sextile to Mars, which is applying in the station chart, but is exact on the 23rd. And then we have a Sun Mercury conjunction on the 1st of May, both in Taurus. And then our last non-lunar transit is at the end of the retrograde on May 12th. We have a sextile from Mercury to Saturn and a sextile to Venus, which will have moved into Cancer at that point too. And so it feels again kind of very lunar, very watery, very supportive, very, you know, I don't know. And there's
not many hard aspects to it during this retrograde.
I think thinking about what Lisa was saying about regulating our feelings around communication and how we are and are not able to be heard or express ourselves or get our point across or whatever, to me feels very much in concert with with Mercury traveling almost conjunct the moon, or like not conjunct the moon, but aspecting the moon like pretty much the entire time. And so it really is going to be like, how are you feeling about communication is going to be just as important as how you are communicating, and kind of like that. I don't know. It does feel very in your own like internal dialogue.
I have taken 2 retrogrades in a more, I guess like I wouldn't recommend it, like a more risky like way of handling them. Kind of started with the last Mars retrograde, but I'm like taking time to experiment with different things during those times, because Apple's doing that with updates and stuff. Like they always do that during retrograde. And it's like, to me, like, I think we've talked about it before, like, well, if shit's gonna get messed up, like, let's try and see what gets messed up. And like, obviously I'm not saying, you know, take a big swing on your health or like in because I know Taurus is also a lot like the financial sector and stuff too. I'm not saying like gamble money or do anything like that. But if there are things that you've been having a back and forth with and no one's coming to an agreement and like it's weighing on your social calendar, your relationships, and you're willing to like try a different method, I don't see a reason why not to do the Mercury thing and experiment during a time when Mercury isn't super strong. I'm not, again, saying it's going to go your way. I'm not, again, saying like if it's something that's super important to get it right, I don't think this is the time. But if there are things in your life that you're brave enough to take a chance on, I don't think Mercury retrograde is going to, it's like it happens 4 times a year. There are going to be times in life when you're going to have to do things under this transit. So learning how to do them with weights on, so to speak, isn't going to necessarily be a terrible thing later in life. Again, I'm not saying like go do some crazy shit with your computer or whatever, like technical issues, details,
download every virus,
important. Yeah, exactly. Like important emails, double checking, obviously all of those things. But like for sure, if there are things you're willing to experiment with, I don't remember you said you were willing to do it.
I think that's you said something while I was thinking it, Lisa, and I wasn't even sure if I thought it, but then you said it and I'm like, I do think this, because I was thinking, I'm like, this is like a brave Mercury retrograde because it feels so supported. It feels like the thing that feels like it's so hard to say might come out a little easier. And of course that could, maybe it does start a fight. Maybe it does, put some things into perspective. Maybe it is the job that you can't handle. You can't take it anymore. And it's finally like, I can't do that. Like maybe it does just burst out. I mean, that's why we always get the classic stereotypes of like, I heard from my ex during Mercury retrograde, because they're probably thinking like, well, fuck, this might be my last time to like shoot a shot. So like, I'm going to give they're doing it in like the right time, if that makes sense. So I think it is good experimental time to see what it is like to maybe like say that vulnerable thing, because there is so much like Cancery support from various planets, Venus later on and Mars early on, and then also we'll have that long, it will even last out once Mercury's direct, that at the end with support from Saturn too, which like lasts for like 10 days in that sextile from Saturn. And it's all sextiles, it's all like, it feels very like little nudges, like little encouragement. It feels like just say it, like just send the email, like just DM them, like just shoot a shot. And I do think it is, though, coming back to what you originally said, maybe the reminder, but not putting on more work for you. Because I do think Taurus is pleasure and having a good time. So I think seeing what things you like and don't like is very Taurine. And yeah, you could take on the work, but like, why? God, life's so much work. Like, do we need to do more of that? IDK. I do think so.
Did you have the other Sabian symbol as well? I think you said that teased it maybe a little.
Yeah. So like fun fact. So the Mercury retrogrades ends on the 14th, right?
On the 14th.
So basically all of Taurus season, even with the shadow, like everything has been very Taurus Mercury retrograde time. But for this 5 degrees of Taurus, once we leave the retrograde and start moving back towards 15 degrees, this is a bridge being built across a gorge. Isn't that symbolic for the like guy trying to explain stuff with old ways and being like, shit, I need something new. And then having something really big being built. So building bridges to end separation is the little log line there, finding a way to end separation and form group consciousness. And this is I like this line too, is like following a catastrophic setback, it can feel like the earth has opened up to swallow us. The best way to counteract the sense of separation and desolation is to engage in a challenging community project that gives substantial proof of our involvement and importance in life. So, like it feels very fitting in these times where people do feel maybe purposeless or like, what the fuck is this year still going to be? But we're in it. Like we're active participants. It's happening. So I think maybe if there is, we always talk about Mercury retrograde with old projects or old ideas or things that maybe didn't get full life. This could be that good incubation time to then maybe take out once Mercury is moving direct. But I feel like that's a really nice encouragement ending Sabian symbol for looking forward.
Mm-hmm.
Building a bridge. I mean, like, so lovely. Over a gorge, like, so huge.
Well, it is. Yeah, I mean, it is like a way forward where there is not one.
Mm-hmm.
Now there can be forward movement with a bridge, and where there was now a huge chasm.
Mm-hmm. Also, it mentions about avoiding shortcuts. Like sometimes you do have to build the long, bridges ideally are structurally safe and take time. So also be mindful of that.
I think interestingly too for Taurus and Mercury, with Mercury, I tend to let it fall in Gemini area, so the third sign, the Taurus being 2, and I think the bridge is definitely connecting 2. And so I find that bridge very like mercurial in that sense of like it being the third thing that connects 2 others. And with that, obviously, in a structural speaking, like whose job is it to maintain and all of those things? Well, it's both, because both sides of the as both sides are using it, both sides need to keep making sure it is safe and making sure all of those things and making sure we're meeting halfway, so to speak. And so I think we don't really talk about Taurus having a dual nature a lot, but it is the second sign. And so good to remember, like, especially if we're talking about communication, it's often one-on-one and those things. It goes both ways, so to speak.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like this line too, is the more each connection we make allows for more connections to be made. And ain't that the truth? And also one more thing, because I thought it was nice too and very Taurian, is when we apply ourselves completely to a task, even if we're assisted, I think it's just talking about like basically whole assing something versus maybe a half ass of something. But it also mentions a lot in the Sabian symbol of calling on angels and guides too. So it's like you can fully immerse yourself in a project, but like Lisa said, like Taurus is a sign that does care about others, and I think Libra and Venus gets that rap a lot, and then same with Gemini with social signs, but Taurus is very much about other. I think it's almost a reaction to Aries, which is like the self ram, and then but like, well, what about me? Like, what if we hung out? Like, what if we coupled up and did something cute together?
Well, and to me, calling on guides and enlisting all of the help you can is also still doing something whole ass. That doesn't mean you're doing your whole part and you're also asking for anything. Like there's humility in that. There is, understanding your place in the world, in that of saying there are also some things that I can't do on my own, instead of going like, this is all me day one. This is like me and my, better angels who also by the grace of God go I, whatever the
Have either of you played It Takes Two on Switch?
No,
or I don't know if it's available on other platforms, but I know it's available on Switch.
I've seen the film with the Olsen twins, but
it's definitely not the same. Definitely not based relation on the film. It's not like the Lego Batman game or anything like that. It's definitely its own thing. But if anyone on here, I don't know if we have listeners that play a lot of video games or not, but it definitely feels. I've just started playing it. I really enjoy it. It's a good game for couples. And it's really, really fun. It's interesting. The graphic design is very interesting too. The conceit of it is very interesting. I don't want to give too much away in case anyone wants to play it. It's collaborative. Yeah, it's cool. And I didn't think I was gonna like the style at first, and then like the more I play it, the more I really like it, because it's conducive to the way your character moves and stuff. So I don't know. It is interesting. I like that a lot of the challenges are that you're collaborating, but you're doing opposite things, and you can't really move forward without your partner either. So it is like sometimes you just have to wait. Like, not me. Sometimes Scott just has to wait. Like, while like I figure out how to get it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just have to be like, okay, like because the only thing you could do is like switch controllers and like cheat, quote to speak, and like let the person or whatever. But and of course there are parts where you're both doing stuff and one person does more than the other, but it's like, I don't know, it's
ain't
cute.
That partnership.
Yeah, and it's also like,
wait, I want to play this. It looks really cute. I'm gonna.
You should play it. It's great. I'm really enjoying it. But I think it's a good representation of relationships. It's about a relationship too, but it's like it's a good representation of those things because it's hard to remember that when you're talking, someone else is also doing something, listening. You're not just going, I do something, you do something. No, you're both doing two things at once. And so it is like, I don't know. It is very Mercury retrograde. And I feel like it's a fun way, especially if you like are having relationship woes or if you're in a good place and it doesn't really matter. It is fun to be like in these different characters for a minute.
I love it.
I love that.
Yeah. It's a good, it's not trust building, but yeah, like it's good to do, I think, games that brings out like so much of like our how to communicate. I always think of that, like if you had to be on Amazing Race with like your partner or something, and it's like, do you know what I'm fucking saying? Like, do you understand this?
I have
brute force doesn't just work.
I have a great Amazing Race pitch and someone that would do it with me, but I won't say it because I don't want anyone stealing it.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
We'll save it for the Patreon.
For the Patreon.
I want to know. I'll sign up. I'm down.
Well, the retrograde is here. Have no fear. It will be fine. And I love that. Yeah, I think just a broad reminder, we've said it too. I think Lisa mentioned it too, that like retrogrades happen 3 to 4 times a year. They are a natural process of the Mercury cycle. It's not anything. It's like, you do not have to stop your life. If you have to do things, don't be scared. Sometimes we have to do stuff at unideal times. Just be aware that this is what's happening, that miscommunications can happen, that we might not have all of the information. Do your best, be kind, be patient, be understanding when you can. And just know that this is all happening right on time. So don't need to freak out. We're going to be fine. We're going to learn. We're going to practice the rule of Rees, and we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Totally. It's earthy. So when in doubt, just sit it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't forget to ground yourself. Don't get too whipped up. You can,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lay it down.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
We will.
Check your reoccurring fees on your bank statement.
Yes, that's a rule of Re.
That's right a rule. Review fees. Your reoccurring charges.
Review your reoccurring charges. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.